What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and it's Top 10 Thursday. Dealing with money can be difficult. Whether it be balancing your checkbook or running a massive game studio, mistakes can be made. Screw things up bad enough and you could get yourself in big trouble. That's the lesson learned by these people. Today we're counting down the projects that exploded in all the wrong ways, on my list of the top 10 games that killed companies. Number 10. Enter the Matrix. If you get permission to create a giant movie tie-in, normally it can be pretty profitable. When Shiny Entertainment started working on Enter the Matrix, they wanted to make it the most epic film-based game ever. They bragged about designing hundreds of martial arts moves, huge moments that add to the universe, and actual clips of the movie filmed with the actors just for this project. Dumping this many millions of dollars into the game was risky, but it sort of paid off. They ended up making their money back almost exactly. By the time they sat down and started working on a Matrix sequel, it was already too late. They finished Path of Neo just in time to shut down the whole studio. Number 9. Fable Legends. Few things hurt more than watching a once great series slowly being killed off. Fable started on the original Xbox, directed by the incredibly talented Peter Molyneux. With his sharp mind behind it, this franchise grew to be immensely popular. Each game was bigger, had more magic, and managed to build a more fascinating world for us to save. When the master behind this series got bored though, things began to fall apart. Molyneux was truly the spirit of Fable. Without him here, Lionhead Studios decided to do a spin-off. This would be a team-based battle game where players are free to create their own heroes and villains. After an extended beta, years of internal testing, and tons of press events though, it was clear that this project would never be completed. In 2016, everyone was fired, the game was cancelled, and the last shreds of Fable died. Number 8. Tomb Raider: Angel of Darkness. For most of her career, Lara Croft has been fighting her way through the darkest places on Earth in her quest for treasure. She was a pioneer of 3D puzzle platformers, but eventually people began to get a little bit tired of her series, and Core Design started getting scared. This was their company's main character. If she wasn't making money, then they were in a real mess. The executives had a meeting and determined that the smartest choice was to try and reinvent her, to make her a darker hero for the early 2000s. Unfortunately, what we got essentially ruined everything that made her games awesome. No longer were we free to explore ancient tombs. Instead, we would wander the city streets, do boring sneaking sections, and deal with a really dumb leveling system. When Angel of Darkness released, critics tore it apart, some even calling it the downfall of Lara Croft. Their investors were so angry they got rid of everyone involved with this project. Number 7. Split Second. Perhaps one of my favorite genres to play, but I get to talk about the least often, is racing games. These can be some of the hardest things to work on, because really, innovation in driving games is complicated. Making something new is, of course, a good idea, but if your title is too crazy, then no one will want to try it. Sadly, this is thought to be what killed Split Second. The story in this game is that we're starring in a reality TV show where people compete for money, glory, and a chance to race another day. If you lose though, you could actually die. By performing stunts and perfect turns, you build up energy called power play that could be unleashed to destroy parts of the track. It was a big flashy way of having evolving stages, and it was a very expensive part of development. Even though this game got fantastic reviews, absolutely no one bought it. With flatline sales, BlackRock Studios was quietly shut down. Number 6. Too Human. Here we have a perfect example of doing everything wrong when making a game. Silicon Knights first showed off Too Human in 1998 with plans of releasing it on the PlayStation. After multiple delays, major mix-ups, and one corporate merger, the game was finally released 10 years later. By this time, hype was totally dead, and to make matters worse, rumors began to circulate that part of the project may have been stolen. For Too Human, Epic Games was filling the role of publisher. What this basically means is they were paying Silicon Knights' bills while they worked on it in order to get a cut of the final profit. During production, Silicon Knights started randomly using stuff that Epic Games had made without permission, including this fancy graphics engine. The Unreal Engine is very top of the line and used by some of the largest studios. When they stole it to use for Too Human, they got sued to pieces. Not only did they win their case in court, but Epic Games got the company completely bankrupt and every copy of Too Human pulled off shelves to be destroyed. Number 5. Daikatana. Imagine if you just created one of the most revolutionary shooters of all time. What do you follow that with? If you're John Romero, co-director of Doom, you found your own company in an attempt to reinvent the genre once again. Ion Storm was a group of developers handpicked by Romero with the impossible mission of making the ultimate FPS experience. Funny enough, what they made instead was one of the most hated games ever. Daikatana was going to be a combination of futuristic cyberpunk and old-school RPG. You could wield swords, learn magic, or just carry a huge shotgun. Any problem was supposed to have many solutions. I bet this sounds amazing, right? Too bad what we got was a broken game with terrible graphics and nearly unplayably bad design. If the glitches didn't stop you from enjoying it, then the sloppy maps would. It was so universally despised that mere weeks after launch, it was already being put in discount bins. Needless to say, Ion Storm is long gone. Number 4. Lair. Sometimes being brave and trying to invent your own style of gaming can make you millions of dollars. Just look at something like Candy Crush. It's simple, but everyone understands it. Therefore, it made billions. This straightforward gameplay style is clearly what Factor 5 Studios was aiming at when they began working on Lair. The PlayStation 3 had special sensors inside the controller that could tell when it was being tilted. Using this basic tool, they made a dragon flying simulator that would let you use your controller to grab hold of the reins for yourself. I'll admit that when I first read about it, I was extremely excited. Upon buying the game though and popping it in, I quickly discovered that it flat out didn't function. Seriously, flying this beast was almost just a matter of luck rather than skill, because you could never tell when it would register a command. Since it had no backup control scheme that let you use a normal joystick, it was essentially unbeatable. Word spread fast among consumers about the issues this project had, leaving stores with boxes of unsold copies. Number 3. Noire. Brutal labor conditions is something awful that many of us have to at some point deal with in our lives. In order to pay rent or play a role in something you're passionate about, you occasionally have to go through hell. That's the harsh truth to what secretly went down at Team Bondi during the development of Noire. Let me just start by saying this game was phenomenal. It was Grand Theft Auto except set in the 1940s, and we got to play the police for a change. It was magnificent. However, what wasn't so stellar was the working conditions of employees. A series of leaked emails detailed how they were forcing employees to work 12 to 14 hours a day every single day of the week, and if you tried to take sick time or your body started to break down, you would be fired. People grew so afraid of management that they began to reach out to websites, just basically trying to get help. A few guys even did anonymous interviews and listed how painful their jobs had become, all in an effort to create the best game possible. Things got so bad that eventually their parent company just shut them down, rather than let them make an Noire 2. Number 2. BioShock Infinite. By nearly any standard, BioShock Infinite was a huge success. In its first year of release, it sold over 10 million copies, but even that wasn't quite enough to save the franchise. Ken Levine is the genius behind the BioShock trilogy. Each one put unique heroes in difficult situations and waited for us as the player to determine the correct path. Levine once referred to these projects as interactive Rorschach tests, a piece of art that makes something so stark you can see your true self reflected in it. I love the ideas hidden within these games, and it makes them so vastly different from any other first-person shooter. If that wasn't cool enough, the graphics were insane, combat was diverse, and best of all, the stories were so rich and deep. What this all added up to, though, was a very, very stressful journey for Ken Levine. Recently, he stated that he just couldn't take the pressure of trying to hide away these giant projects and hoping that it's successful enough to not make you go bankrupt. As soon as they were finished making the last of the promised DLC for BioShock Infinite, they let everyone at Irrational Games go. It's such a sad loss to see so many brilliant minds just walk away. Number 1. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Welcome to one of the sloppiest messes in gaming history. Where do I even begin with this? 38 Studios was a relatively tiny but talented group of developers who desperately wanted to expand. The state of Rhode Island offered them a deal. If they moved their entire company to their state and generated at least 50 jobs, the state would lend them $1 million. Seems like a solid bargain, right? Well, this whole bet basically rides on the fact that Reckoning would have to be a big hit, which unfortunately it was not. The numbers that came out later said that they needed to sell at least 3 million copies to break even and pay back Rhode Island. They sold roughly 1 million. This is when things went into full-on panic mode. They tried to rush out DLC to get extra money from the people who already bought it, and they announced an upcoming online game to try and build more hype around the studio. Despite their efforts, the company was sunk. They couldn't pay back anyone. Every employee was straight up fired on the spot, and even the building they worked in was closed down the very same day. It was an absolute disaster, and for that reason, I am awarding Kingdoms of Amalur as the game that's the most savage company killer. Did your favorite catastrophe not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Now, in honor of this list, I'm going to go play a little bit of BioShock Infinite, because this game will always be a masterpiece to me, despite its hardships. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video, maybe check out my last video. Please subscribe, and if you want, share this somewhere with your friends.